Hey Rockstars, I'm JB, expert salesperson and master presenter.
I'm the doctor, psychologist, and behavioral expert.
This is the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab podcast. What is up, Rockstars, and welcome back to the lab. I'm JB.
I'm the doctor.
If this is your first time joining us, welcome to the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab podcast. We're happy to have you where we have real talk with real professionals, even if it just happens to be the two of us. If you're a returning listener or viewer, thank you so much for joining us, whether it's via podcast or via YouTube. If you haven't already, just make sure you give us a like, a subscribe, a follow, a 5-star review, whatever it is you like to do. We appreciate you and thank you.
Thank you. Do it. Thank you. Thank you.
Are you looking for me to say you're welcome?
No, just making sure I thank that last person that just did it.
Clever. I wasn't aware there was a last person that did it.
My senses were out there that person was just trying to find the button. You know, 'cause sometimes on different devices they hide it, and you know, on YouTube they always move stuff around while you're watching things. So it probably took them a second to find it, but I appreciate that they went through that effort to locate that button. They had the awareness to realize it wasn't where they thought it was, and they were aware that they moved it. So then they went and clicked it, and we thanked them.
Beware for the cheesy opening, folks, but we are going to be talking about awareness today, which might be why we dropped it in there 2 or 3 or 4 times.
We're subtle.
It took you a while to get to it, though. I was like, where is this going? We're working in a circle here.
Got to keep you on your toes.
Something like that. So we are talking about awareness today. Personally, for me, awareness has got to be the number one skill I see people lacking in professionally. I mean, the number one thing that people are lacking in professionally is awareness. What do you think, Doc?
They're probably unaware that they're lacking that skill.
Well, isn't that the worst part, though? I mean, you talk about why is awareness such an issue for people? Because they don't know they're unaware. It's like that old saying, hey, you don't know what you don't know, and that's what makes you dangerous. And that applies more to awareness than almost like any other skill out there, because people who don't have awareness have no clue that they're unaware.
It's that old saying of ignorance is bliss.
How do you get across to somebody that doesn't know they're unaware that they're unaware? Right? Like, how do you get somebody to that stage where it's like, oh, right, that's me.
Well, you definitely want to take some tack around it, because like most things, people are going to get defensive if you're pointing out something that they might be lacking in or missing. So, you know, make sure that you are taking the time to doing it in a way that is constructive and not criticism. So you don't put them on the defense right away. So they're usually not aware that they're on the defense either.
Yeah, it is something that we get defensive about, and to be clear, we all struggle with awareness to some extent or another. Right? This is one of those things where we all have blind spots. We're all unaware of certain things about how we behave or how we act, or this or that. All the more reason why you should have somebody around you that can give you some sort of feedback. It can give you a feedback loop around it. It's how you work with me, for sure. I mean, you're constantly like, hey, JP. Hello.
I like to say that we provide awareness for each other.
We do.
That was nice for you today.
He wants something, folks. I don't know what it is, but he wants something. I'm concerned. But awareness, this is an important thing. And when we talk awareness, I mean, really, we're talking self-awareness, or are we talking more than that?
So interestingly enough, timing, and you know, JB doesn't even know this fact, so it's not that we created this podcast just around this idea. I was just interviewed for a newspaper article, and one of the questions they asked me was, what are some of the 3 traits, qualities, or skills that you've adapted over the year, that you used over the years to improve your business, and it's helped you a lot? And my number one thing was awareness. Throughout my years in the hospitality field, awareness served me really well. I was really good at putting out fires before they even became fires, while they were just little sparks and kindlings. So I was aware of a lot of stuff that was going on around. But being aware of your surroundings is one thing, and being aware of the people you're interacting with is another thing. But the other big piece to it was self-awareness, knowing where your limitations are, knowing where your strengths are, knowing when you need some break to take them, that self-care, knowing when the other person might not be into what you're saying. Having that kind of awareness, I think goes both ways. So to answer that part of the question, it's definitely both sides is part of awareness.
I love that because when we talk awareness, we're not just talking about, oh, I'm aware of how I'm feeling, or I'm aware about this emotional response that I've got going on. Uh, Awareness is as much about the people around us as it is us, and the perception of the people around us is something that so many people miss. They don't realize how they're coming off to the people around them, and that's where they lack in self awareness. Versus the people who are just unaware of how they're feeling or behaving or responding to something. So it's kind of both things. And if you're unaware of either one of those, you're going to run into real issues in business and in your personal life. There's just no doubt about it. It's why I think awareness is one of the biggest issues out there for professionals today, because either we're lacking and failing in being aware internally of what's going on and why we're responding and reacting the way we are and why we're feeling the way, or even how we're feeling, or we're totally unaware of how somebody else is taking us and their perception of us. And that's such a big problem.
Most of the time, most people are very self-absorbed in what their thought process is, right? Even when you're having a conversation, one of those other soft skills we talk about a lot of times is active listening. And why we talk about it so much is because of a lack of awareness of what the other person's saying, because most of the time we're formulating a response, right? So we're in our own heads thinking about what we're going to say about us or about our view on the situation. So having that awareness branches out to a lot of different areas, but paying attention, especially to what the other person's saying and doing, that's a big piece of awareness. As you'll notice, as we do different podcasts and different stories, how a lot of these soft skills intertwine with each other because they are very connected. So it's a matter of not just taking one of them, it's taking a lot of the stuff that we talk about and putting it together.
Being aware. If we look at this and we say, okay, this is a big deal, we've got to be more aware. How do you recommend that somebody actually does it? How do you actually go about being more aware? What's the first step for you?
I think a lot of it is just taking a second and just, so if we're looking about your surroundings, like pay attention when you walk in, just take a good glance around, take notice of people interactions, where things are located. When they're training someone like a police officer, the first thing that they're taught is to be aware of their surroundings, right? So if you ever sat in a restaurant with a police officer or someone in that field, they never sit with their back to the door. They usually pick the farthest corner away and where they can see the whole room, because a big part of their training is to be aware of their surroundings at all times, even when they're at lunch. So it's that having that where they're set up as a location is a big piece of it. We talk about the same thing when we're talking about our networking, right? Like be aware of the room when you walk in, set yourself up in a good place. So we can use it in different strategies. But that's one of the first pieces that you can do, is just be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of how you feel when you walk into those surroundings too. Are you feeling like it's a good place? Are you feeling, the energy? Are other people going to be feeling that same kind of thing too? That could be something you're playing off of. It's very dull in there, then that's something that you could be aware of too. So it's really just start with just being aware of yourself and your surroundings as a good starting place. That's not it, but that's a good starting place.
Yeah, I partially agree with you here, and I partially disagree. And the reason I agree with you is if I'm just expanding my awareness, then I can work on that, and I can train around that, and I can build on that. But if I'm unaware of certain things, I don't have a baseline to get better at it. I'm completely blind to it. So for me, it's not about training as the first step. It's about getting that feedback loop established. You've got to get somebody in your life that's willing to kind of be to call you out on it and say, hey, you are totally blind to this, man, or you are totally missing this, or how can you not, like, do you recognize how you're feeling and behaving right now? Right? You need somebody in your life that's willing to do that. And you've got to have somebody in your life that not just willing to do that, because you said this earlier, Doc, they got to be willing to do it, but you've also got to be willing to accept it. You got to be able to take that criticism and take it as a helpful, constructive criticism as opposed to something that you're going to get defensive over. That's step one to me.
So half our listeners just cringed because they're like, I don't want to talk to people and have to ask them and tell me about myself. That
means they know something's up, right? But let's take that example, right? You got to know, right? If you're afraid or defensive about even asking somebody to be honest with you, then you've got some issues. You just don't want to admit to what they are. You want to bury your head in the sand, right? I mean, that's a defense mechanism and a half, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That's that's also an emotion that's going to come from that defense mechanism. So I'm letting you guys know that I understand that's probably a reaction that a lot of you are having, and that's okay. That's the challenge is too, who do you ask? So if you have a significant other, that's always a good place to start because I bet you they don't have a problem telling you what you need to work on.
You might have a problem listening to them, but they're not going to have a problem telling you.
But however, that's where you can enlist some good friends, coworkers. That's also a good thing if you are up for a review, maybe with your boss. How do I participate? Do you think I have a good command of being aware of what's going on around here? That's one of those things that hopefully you have a good relationship with your boss if you're going to ask that question. But the other thing is getting someone outside of your circle to just have something like what we do, get in with a coach, get in with someone who doesn't have any skin in the game that can actually just sit there with you, observe you, and kind of introduce that game plan into your life. And then obviously if you have some awareness, and it's easier to start implementing. And then if you find you don't, then you have someone there that's working with you right away to kind of take that to the next level.
Be aware.
And for those of you that aren't aware, that's a big part of what we do with IVOLVE Performance and Development. And if you look at any of our marketing stuff or any of on our website, you'll see that 10 of the main soft skills that we focus on, awareness is right there for a reason, because we do believe it's so important. It's called the cheap plug.
I love it. You can keep going.
I have to be aware that there's someone else that would like to talk in the room. So
I conceded the floor to you, man. I'm being real polite on this one.
I know I don't know what to do with it. So it's your turn to talk again.
You could ask me.
Have awareness.
You could ask me a question.
Would you like me to ask you a question?
No.
That is called.
I don't need you to ask me a question.
Putting it into a circle.
Yeah,
asking a question.
That's called dodging, folks. That's what that's called.
Well, we are talking to ChatJB, so we do have to ask it a form of a question, right? Can you answer the question about awareness in a succinct way to provide our podcast listeners a good example? And then I'll have to recalculate at the end. Usually says that, right? Because you'll spit out something and then I push the button again. Is that how it works?
I don't know. I didn't understand your query. So, you got to be given better prompts than that, man. It's ChatJB. It's not Chat, GPT 4.0 yet.
Would you like to share your thoughts on awareness in a succinct way for our listeners?
After years of getting together with people professionally and personally, there's really not a lot of training and development around awareness. I mean, you really look at what's out there and you get marketed systems and techniques and processes, all of which are super important to build a business. But until you have a real solid grasp on awareness, you're not going to be able to manage to yourself in the way that you need to be really successful. And you're not going to be able to manage to the other people around you. Nothing we do is in a vacuum. So I don't think I'm being succinct here, but what I am trying to say is awareness is the building block and the foundation of developing a really successful business and professional career. And if you're not getting development around it, you're putting your attention onto other things and you're putting the cart ahead of the horse, because it all starts here. This is the building block. It's like it's like the quarks and the neutrinos and everything within the atom that you got to start with.
All right. So first, for our younger listeners, a cart and a horse, the analogy only works. Back in the day, there was these horses that were in front of the carts and they would pull them. So if you put the cart in front of the horse, it doesn't go anywhere.
I don't know what you're talking about. I hit both audiences. I did the cart and the horse, and I talked about quarks and neutrinos, man. I did cutting edge science and, cutting edge Amish. I did it all.
It was very. You were very aware of the surrounding audience of being very diverse.
That's it. I just got canceled by the Amish culture, probably. But
Because
sorry,
they're not
folks.
watching on technology. You're safe. So
we want to.
yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say that I was actually just going to throw in there that if you're not watching on YouTube, you don't get to see all the little stuff fun stuff that pops up on the screen. So you don't get us to notice that we're calling that chat JB as a actual product that will be available for sale one day. Figure out how to market that more. So make sure you're following us on YouTube also.
Bro, everybody's got a price, even me. I could be for sale right now if you got the right price. I do kind of have to say though, it's like you said go ahead and then you started talking. You gave me permission, but then you just took it and ran.
That's what we do.
That's what you do. Be aware. What I was going to say is I'd like to hear from other people. Have you ever done awareness training and development? That I really want to hear from people. My guess is most people haven't. My guess is most people haven't even thought about awareness as a skill to develop formally. And that's what I'd like to see change. If there's a change in what we're doing, I'd like to just get the recognition that awareness needs to be one of the first things you work on in development and skill development.
Are you aware that you need awareness to have training on awareness?
This is why they have blind spots and need to work with, coaches and consultants.
Just like us.
There you go, folks. All right. If you're still with us, thanks for joining. We're going to do a number of the different soft skills and their importance. We felt like this was a really good one to kick off with as part of that series. So if you're still with us, give us a like, subscribe, follow if you haven't. Check out some of our previous podcasts and stay tuned for some of our upcoming guests because we've got some great people joining us on the podcast real soon.
That we do. And of course, you can follow us on all our social media at JB and the Doctor, or you can find us at our website at jbandthedoctor.com. I think that's it we're going to be aware of our surroundings and go do something else.
Later, folks.
Peace out, yo.